Okay, so welcome guys. Today's class we're going to be concluding the issue with the customer master data. Remember we had errors around the SD side. We're going to see how that error was resolved and the lessons that was learned. Also, we had when we're trying to do the CEO configuration, we also had another issue around the valuation type and you know and what was the error about now? Um, about creating profit center and the valuation method. Okay, so we're just going to fix those two. When we're done, we will look at we'll go a little bit into costing, just know how to plan cost, how to actual enter actual cost and how to plan for cost. Then we'll look at currency configuration. Then maybe introduce asset accounting and hopefully wrap this up by tomorrow. We'll look at we'll go deeper into asset accounting, look at FIMM and FISD integrations, and see what is left and wrap up. So basically, today we are going to be looking at those things the errors we had and try to resolve them and move on to the next thing. Also, as part of this class, towards the end, we're going to look at month-end activities, like how we should be, the flow, what are the expectations, what are the month-end activities, and how you go about them. I also share the video that I feel that will also be of interest if you want to learn that well ahead of time. You can also look at that to, improve your knowledge. Okay, so we started something on the BP side and we got this error where, so I'm just going to, um, so we had this customer and we had the error around, the error was about the tax. So we're going to go to BP. We have created the business partner. I will extend to company code, which is finance, and also extend to customers, which has to do with SD. So we had the issue of around billing, where we had in the output tax, we had three different tax, what we call output tax, three different tax categories, right? So I was able to check out where this error was coming from. And so for my discovery, it was actually an SD configuration that we did not do. So that sometimes you don't have to do that, but I guess this is a unique, like I said, the company code had that setting. So by default, our tax category MWST was not activated. So I had to go do that manually. All right, so the step I followed, I actually used three different T codes to find what was wrong. So I'm just going to take us through that process in case you have that error around the taxes in your customer master data. So we had so we go to SPRO. Remember, the issue was that we had tax categories that was not allowing us to. We didn't have any configurations for them. They were not part of our company code, so we were stuck at this point. So what I did was to go to the configuration settings for SD. So SAP reference ing, I think SD. Where is my ST? See you. Where can I see you now? Okay, sales and distribution, basic function, define tax determination, something like that. Basic function, taxes, then define tax determination rule. So basically this was where the issue was. So if you go to your country, for example, so this was the issue. We had this is also affecting Canada. So you can see that we had these three different tax structure that was applying to the invoice. Meanwhile, we are supposed to apply only one, but I think the uniqueness of US and Canada, they have three different tax structures, and we're going to see how that happened. And when you go to US, so the same thing happened in US. So by standard, the tax category can be more than one, but when we did that configuration, we used MWST as a tax category, and you can only have one tax category. I think they created three different tax categories and assigned it to one country. But for us, we created only one tax category, which was MWST, when we're configuring our VAT. So we had to go to US. When you go to US, we had three of them, and those were the three that were actually displaying here. So I had to delete the first two and retained one for the US and assigned our output tax. Remember when we did tax configuration, we used MWST and assigned it to the tax calculation procedure. So I had to delete the ones there that were there when we copied from the company code and replaced it with the MWST, which represented the output tax we configured or we created. Once I deleted that and clicked on save and went back here, I realized that the other two had gone. So I just had one line item for the tax. Let me edit this. So I just had one line item for the tax, and that is what I used. I just came here, selected the tax type, and you have two options: tax exempt and liable to tax. Right, so I was able to make sure, so you have this option of making this customer liable to tax or making this customer exempted from tax. So that is actually what this master data tax structure is for. It's for applying tax to the master data of the customer and telling the system if this customer is liable to tax or not. So for now, this customer is liable to tax. So that's why we have one there, which is liable to tax. Then we just clicked on saved, and the error was resolved. Right. So if you have that error, then I also checked. The next thing I checked, in addition to this, was the assigned delivery plans. Okay, check the regional codes. So if you go to regional codes, remember we had code tax for county and for city, which applies to the US. So I had to, of course, those ones were not applicable to our own company code here. So you can go to assign to delivery plant. Also check the plant, the tax assignment to the plant. So if you go to IBTC and select our plant, this was what I was looking for. So you can see that because of what I did, county code and city code, these are taxes that apply to the plant and applies to your invoice. They had to be removed automatically once I deleted that. So, but you can add them if by configuration that is what applies. But we just have one tax, and we don't have tax for county and for city. I think in the US, different states actually have their different tax policies. So that was done, and then another thing I needed to do was to go to OBD2, that's customer master data, customer account group, to check and make sure the field status was open. So I went to financial accounting. Where is that? Financial accounting, ARO and AP, customer accounts, master data, preparations, then define account group with screen layout. Look for my account group for customers. Okay, this is it. Then go to sales data. Then go to billing. Remember, the issue we had was with billing. Make sure that the field status is all optional, because if it's required, then you're going to have issues with executing that transactions. So make sure that the Incoterms, billing period, taxes and licenses, all these are optional. Once you do those three issues, once I did those, went through those 3 steps, I was able to create my customer master data without any errors. Right. So that was one of the ways that this was resolved. And of course, like Okechukwu said the other time, one of the beauty of SAP is that we have a community that can always support you. Most people have, or some people might have gone through this problem before, so they share these informations. You can always go to Google and enter your error and see if other people had similar issues and how they resolved them. And that would also, so I mean, being a consultant, an SAP consultant, will also empower your research skills. So you have to be somebody who is hungry to solve problems and who is willing to learn. And of course, in SAP, the learning doesn't end. There's no point if you're an SAP consultant and you stay a week without learning anything in SAP. I think that you are basically a consultant that will remain probably on one job or doing one specific thing over the years. But if you're someone who wants to grow, who wants to get to the peak, you have to constantly learn. There is a lot to learn. There are new additions to the application that are coming up almost every year. There are new modules now that are very, very highly in demand. And so learning is not optional. Okay, so that was how this issue was resolved, and we were successfully created our customer master data, including the SD part. Okay, so the second issue we had in our last class was that of profit center. And when we wanted to create a profit center, that has also improved my understanding in terms of config. So I remember we were about to maintain the controlling area settings when we tried to put the currency type, and of course the system was throwing up an error telling us that profit center accounting telling us that valuation method O does not exist in currency valuation profile. So once again, I went to do some research because I had not really encountered this error before. So I realized that during the configuration in S4HANA, I think this is really specific to S4HANA. When you go to so I realized that the problem was coming from controlling area setting. So you go to controlling area, go to general ledger accounting, general controlling. Then you will go to manage multiple valuation approaches or transfer prices. So basically, the essence of the multiple approach or transfer price is that because you're going to be reporting you're going to be presenting reports on different views or different approaches. So let me just go back here. So you see the valuation views. These are the valuation views that you can use to, carry out different valuations according to the price structure. So I did a note, which I will also share with you guys just in case. So I did a brief note. So this was the error. So you would realize that what I realized here was to learn about the transfer pricing concept, right? So legal views represents the value of sales price of goods and services transferred between legally independent member countries. So what this means is that when you are transferring goods or services from, let's say, an object like a profit center or to a controlling area in FI, or to, it could also be, so once you are trying to create a valuation where you want to see a particular transaction in the profit center view and also in the controlling area view, the price that you're going to be considering when this information is being transferred from one organizational object like the cost center or profit center to the controlling area, the legal view says that you use the sales price. That's the price that has come from the SD side. That you use the selling price of the goods and services. That's in terms of valuating the transactions. If it's according to group view, you use the price, you use the cost of the goods manufactured, right? So in terms of the profit center, you use so price transfer price according to profit center represent valuation approaches which are agreed between different areas of responsibility. So basically what this is saying is when you're doing your valuation in terms of goods transfer from one object to another, how do you value those transfers? So how do you value those stocks that so I'll give you a brief example, right? You have a controlling area in a company code, and you also want to analyze the the transaction using the profit center. So these are different valuation areas or different valuation views you want to view a particular transaction from, right? So the valuation view, which is a standard view in SAP, gives you the opportunity to look at to analyze that transaction in the group view, which is the group wide cost. That's if your company is in a group, the group cost is what you use to analyze that transfer of cost between one object to another. If you're doing the profit center view, basically it's based on the controlling rates, based on the rates in the controlling area. If you're using the legal view, you use based on the sales prices. So when transactions move from one original object in terms of you want to analyze, the view you select will determine how you're going to be viewing, how those transactions will be evaluated. So So the essence of this is basically to help to report, is actually to help report in. So if you're, for example, like I said, this object, profit center accounting, is actually a module that helps to present um, the profit, not really profitable, yeah, profitability, but using the accounting account approach, which will go through the ledgers. So the essence of profit center is to look at the various units within the organization and see how profitable those units are, right? And basically, how do you value, how do you know how profitable unit is? You have to use a valuation approach. And the valuation approach for the profit center is, by standard, we use the legal valuation, which is you use the selling price, when transactions happen within that company code. So there are different valuation approaches, but according to, by SAP standard, the legal valuation is what is required or what is recommended when you're trying to create a profit center. However, we were able to get to this point and select, but we had the error of valuation method and currency issues. So what, of course, the steps basically was still within the controlling area space. So sorry, let me go back. So what I did was to check the manage multiple valuation approaches and transfer prices, go to the basic settings. The first thing we did was to maintain the valuation profile, which we tried to do. Remember, we created this IBTC, we created it, we assigned, if you double click on it, or sorry, you go to details, we assigned the details where we assigned the currency type to the valuation view. Apparently that was not enough. Just like Okechukwu said, I think what we were missing was the second step, where we were supposed to assign the currency and valuation profile to a controlling area. That we did not do. So that's why when you learn SAP with transaction codes, you might not fully understand the structure. You might not fully understand the design. I think I was trying to solve this issue with the transaction code. When you are limited with transaction codes, then then if the transaction code you use cannot solve the problem, you are stuck. But if I was able to access the menu part, I would have actually seen that there was something else I had not done. Are you guys there?
Yes,
Yes.
we are.
Yes.
Okay. If I had gone through the basic settings, I would have seen that, okay, I did this, but I had not done the second one. So when I executed this, I realized that I was supposed to assign the thing I created to my own company code. So when I went there and I went to my controlling area, and I brought in that IBTC I created and assigned it to my controlling area. And immediately I did that using the company code. Immediately I did that and saved it. I also had to check the descriptions of the valuation basis, although I didn't do anything here. So here we show you the number of currencies we have in SAP S/4HANA. In ECC, I think we have about three main currencies. In S/4HANA, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. We have over 30, 21, 20, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34. 34 different kinds of currencies in S/4HANA. Right. So that's huge. So you can analyze transaction in different currencies, and that's a very big plus. That's also one of the changes or difference between SAP S/4HANA and ECC. So so of course the transaction 10 was there and everything was okay. So I didn't have to do anything here. And the next one was to create versions for valuation method. We had already created the version. I mean, we remember I tried to also resolve the issue. I tried to create a version for Profit Center. So what you do is you highlight the version 0, you double click on the settings for Profit Center, you add new, So I was able to add this version. But remember that this did not actually solve the problem then. So once you do that, I think that is done. Then you can define ledger for CO version. We actually did this in our configuration. You look for the controlling area. And you assign the leading ledger to your controlling area. So once you do these three, okay, there is a material ledger chasing which is not relevant for us now. Then if you're using the if you're in the live system, you have to activate, you have to set up you have to set up the transfer prices in the production system. Yeah, so this is the last step, but we were not able to do this because we are not in the production system. So we are supposed to assign the valuation to the we are supposed to assign the valuation to the valuation version 0. So it's not necessary for this. So after doing that, I was able to go back and resolve the issue with on profit center accounting. So I was able to go to maintain continuous area setting and imputed all the basic information I needed. Right, so put this, enter this, put the local currency type, put the local currency. So I think I'm going to share that second video so that this would be a continuation. So you see when we had the error, and this video will also show you how the error was resolved. I think I have not shared the second one. So immediately I did that and saved, the issue was resolved. So that is where we are at this point. So I'm going to continue from here with the configuration for the profit center, the cost center, and we're going to do a round of transactions just to see how the postings to cost centers and profit centers happen. Then see if we can do a little bit on how to plan cost, then we will take it up from there. Look at introduce asset accounting if we still have the time, and we call it a day. I don't know if we have any questions at this point. Do we have any questions?
Not for me.
Okay. Okay, so let's continue. Yeah. So let's continue. So patients, you can excuse yourself anytime.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Thank you very much.
yeah,
So
we're going to continue.
just write some email and everything. Kelechi, I will send you some of the job description and everything. So next week Monday I have one.
Okay.
This thing already. I will send you the job. I'll translate it and send it to you in English.
No worries, no worries. All the
Thank
best.
you. Guys,
Yeah.
thank you very much. Oh, have a nice evening and nice weekend.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, bye-bye. I'll just stay and write some things before I go. Thank you. Bye-bye.
No problem. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so once you maintain the controlling area setting, you can now begin with your master data configuration. So you go to profit center accounting, go to master data, go to profit centers. The first thing we have to do is to create a dummy profit center. Like I said, the transaction code for this is KE59. You can always get your T code, that's not a problem. So create dummy profit center. Dummy profit center will be okay, so before I do this, just a minute, let me create a group so that the profit center will fall within a group. So define profit center group, KCH1. So I'm just going to execute that. This is the group that is there by default. It's picking the structure we did. So I'm going to change this to IBTC 001 GRP profit center group. So I'm going to say, remember that these configurations are based on your blueprint documents. So you should also have discussed with the client if they would like to maintain profit centers for their businesses, such that they can track, they can analyze profits for different segments or strata of the business. So you define the profit center with next, you can define your create dummy profit center, which can be used for reporting purposes. So we can use IBTC 001 GRP. Click on basic settings, then put the profit center name. So we're going to have, so let's say the name is dummy profit center. Now, just to put the controlling area in SAP, like I said, is basically for planning costs and for robust reporting outside finance, right? So finance basically reports through the GLs, but in SAP you have other objects, other elements that can help you further give deeper insights into how the business is doing in terms of cost planning and managing your cost. Right, so that's the essence of the controlling module. Okay, so responsible person, Kelly, department, sales, profit center group. So we have created a profit center group. Okay, this is IBTC profit center. The segment is we created segments. I think when we started our configuration, I think we have one as we're supposed to have IBTC segments. Go to the indicators. So this is a dummy profit center is there. Is assigned to IBTC. Then we'll save. So the essence of dummy is to use it for testing, when you're working on a live project. The next is to define an actual profit center now. Just the transaction code to define this, you can always check, is KE51. Just going to execute the profit center with the profit center. So the profit center group this is a profit center we want to create, but I think I'm going to change it IBTC. I'm going to create a profit center for sales for, let me say, let's assume our company is into logistics and supply. So I'll say logistics. Click on enter. Then this is logistics. So I want to know how this department or how this profit center within my group is faring. Logistics, responsible person, Kelly, profit center group. This was, once you click the drop down, it's going to populate the profit center we configured. Segments. We have this IBTC. I think it's done. Go to indicators, go to company codes, go to address. You can fill up all this information, not relevant for this training. Then you save. Okay, so once I clicked on save, it says on inactive status. I have to use this icon by the far right hand side to click on activate. So just activated it and it's going to save it automatically. So I basically have my profit center created. Okay, so the next thing we are going to do is to see how we can assign this profit center to the profit center group. So if I go to my profit center group and click on enter, this is my profit center group. I want to change, yes. So you can see that the two profit centers I created I already assigned to my profit center group. So that is that for the profit centers. We're going to go to the concept of cost centers. Now, basically, cost centers are used to um, track costs. Um, so basically, um, in an organization, right, you can have different cost centers. Cost centers are areas that accumulate cost and that generate revenue. So in a bank, for example, you can have the customer care as a cost center. You can have loans department or a real estate within the bank, the department that is in charge of real estate transactions as a cost center. So these centers will naturally generate cost and um, incur cost and generate non we call those revenues they are not real revenues, but I mean they are values that they add to the business. So because if you don't incur those costs, you might not be able to generate revenues. So how do we define cost centers? And of course, cost center is also used for planning cost. So for example, if you want to budget for a particular, let's say for example, you want to budget for the cost center for logistics. You want to say that for this month, we plan to spend 50 million as per cost for logistics. I mean, for that cost center, we plan to spend, let's say 50,000. So you can use that to plan costs. And when you're posting the actual, you can actually run your report for cost centers and see how that particular cost center is faring. So in the accounting space, it's a very, very important module. And it's also a plus for consultants. When you go for interviews and they say, which of the modules do you know? When you say FICO, the CEO part would basically represent cost centers, profit centers, things like internal orders, product costing, profitability. But the product costing and profitability are very strong modules in the finance side. With so if at least if you know your profit centers and your cost and your cost centers and also internal orders, I mean it's a good plus for you. You could just discuss them, how you can configure cost centers, how you can plan for cost, and also how you can assign cost to how you can post real cost transactions. I think it came up in one of my interviews, basically. All right, so first of all, we have to do the configuration for the cost center before we begin to create the cost centers. So when you go to, remember this is all in controlling. These are all controlling transactions. So we're still in controlling. So controlling, cost center accounting, then you activate. Let's check if the cost center accounting is activated. Select the company code. So you go to activate. So you can see cost center component active. So it's fine. So we move to the next thing. Right. So the next thing we will do is to set up the master data for the cost. And of course, when you come here, you will see cost planning, and we would define all that from the other side, basically. Right. So we're going to first learn how to create the cost centers. So when you go to master data, you go to cost centers. Then you have a lot of options. Define cost center categories. So here you can define the category of costs. We have development cost, logistics, so this actually has actual revenues, plan revenues, commitments, plan secondary cost, plan primary cost. I think we need to even actual revenue. So let me see if I can add this to use for planning. See how that goes. Plan primary actual. Okay, I think this is fine. So I'm going to click on save. I just updated that information. I would see if that will mean, let me check. Okay. Okay. If I have issues, I'm going to come back here. Okay. Now the next we have is selection variant for cost centers. Variant is just a view how the fields will be displayed, not necessary. I think we will just go down to define cost center groups. You can activate inactive cost centers, delete inactive cost centers, go to cost center group, create cost center group. So IBTC, the system has given me IBTC 001. I'll say IBTC 001 cost center. Enter. So IBTC cost center group. So the essence of this is to be able to put all our cost centers inside of this group. Then you save it. It helps for better planning. So once you have created the group, you would basically look for dummy, how to create your dummy profit cost centers. So let's check if there's anything we need to do here. No. So all these are actually fine. On define the categories, define selection variants. Now, in ECC, you can define your cost centers from the configuration side, but basically in S4HANA, you can't. Please just give me a second. Okay. So sorry, guys. So the next thing we're going to do is to basically create our cost centers and take it from there. So I'm going to leave this screen open. I can say /n or just go to a new window. So the creation of cost centers happen at the end user side. So I'm just going to go to accounting, financial accounting, accounting, controlling, cost centers, master data, cost center, individual processing. The transaction code to create a cost center is KS01, but you can actually find that through the menu path. Go to KS01. You can now basically create a cost center. So one will be logistics. So IBTC logistics cost center. It is valid from the 1st of January 2022. So it's open. Okay, so I can just say 2023. Then I go to master data. Then here I can say logistics. I'm just going to create 2 cost centers. responsible person, Skelly. Cost center category, I'll use logistics. The hierarchy area, IBTC 001. I remember when we did this during the configuration business area, we can say, I don't know if logistics is here. We can put it under operations. Okay, I think I have something on IBTC. Yeah, business area IBTC. The currency, we're using USD. Then the profit center that is tied to the cost center, we can select any of them. So we have two profit centers. We can select logistics. Sorry about that spelling. Go to control. So this thing is locked, means that all these areas are locked. So we have to open them because we need to plan. We need to do a lot of planning of this cost. So unlock them. Go to templates. We're not doing anything here. Go to address, communication, English, and you can save. Yeah. Okay, so we have one cost center, and we can create another one for sales. I didn't create a cost center, a profit center for it. I'm just going to say sales, IBTC, sales, Kelly, hierarchy, business area, currency, profit center. So I'm going to use dummy for this. Yeah. Go to control, unlocking all this, then save. So I've been able to create two cost centers. Right, I've been able to create two very, very important cost centers. Okay, so another thing we also need to define very briefly is I need to also teach us about the concept of cost elements. We have said that basically cost elements are used to, they are the integration points between FI and CO, and they are the ones that carry the GLs, the cost from the GLs to the cost center. So how this works is that you have a module called FI. So I think I'm going to, so I don't know how to explain this, but let me see if I can. I don't know, I can't draw here. So you have, for example, SAP FI, and SAP FI uses GLs to do the posting, and we have another module. We have CO. We have CO. So in between SAP FI and CO, we have what we call the. Sorry, I don't know why this is not coming down. Okay, we have what we call the cost elements. And cost elements are of two types. Cost elements are of two types. One is a primary cost element. The primary cost element is basically GLs. So what this does is when you create, let's say for example, you create something in a GL called logistics. Cost element is the integration between FI and CO. So it's going to carry that transaction you posted in the GL. Once you assign the cost center to that GL, the cost element will actually hold that transaction and take it to the CO module, where it's now use it for planning. So it's just that link between FI and CO. And cost element picks the information from the GL in FI, drags it to CO, and says, CO, use it for your cost. When you plan for cost, this is the the information flowing from FI is the actual. In CO, you do planning, but the actual information that hits your CO is FI, is coming from FI. So FI produces the actual, CO produces the planned cost. So when you put two of them together, you now have the variance, which we are going to see as we move on. So another cost center we have is the secondary cost element, which is mostly a CO, is purely CO. It's not FI. It's also used to do planned cost in CO, things like overhead cost, overhead activities, and direct and indirect cost. So it's purely used for CO when you have to apportion cost. So let's say, for example, you work in a factory, and basically a factory has, in production, you have very three important costs. Can you help us, okay, Chuku?
Okay, sir, go ahead.
Can you help us with the cost we have in production?
Um, in production companies, you can have what am I gonna put? You can have production costs. Okay, you divided it this way. You can also have production cost, overhead cost. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Production cost is a direct cost.
The direct cost, yes.
So basically what this means is that if you're producing, for example, a bottled water, the cost of the preform is that thing you hold, the label, and the cap. You know the cap of a bottled water, right? The cap is what you open. Those are direct costs, because they are very, very direct to your production. And you must actually incur them. You can trace them to the cost of your production. Indirect costs, on the other hand, are costs that are part of production, but they are not easily traceable. For example, factory power. Factory power is an in the factory. You can say, okay. Indirect costs can be admin costs. They are not, you can't trace them to a particular activity within the production unit, but you cannot dispute them. So let's say, for example, if the electricity bill of the whole company, let's say the company has a plant and had admin offices, but when they subscribe for power, for the two buildings. You have to apportion the rate that is related to admin and the one that is related to production. So indirect is basically trying to costs that they are not direct to production, but they exist. They assist the production cost. Overhead cost also has that nature. Overhead cost is a cost that is it's tied to production but cannot also be traced. The difference between that with admin is that admin is strictly indirect to production, but it has some contributions. But overhead is really is part of the production cost, but cannot be linked to one process. So you can read further about this very important cost element, because if you say you have done CO, then this is where really, this is what controlling is all about. It's really about planning this cost when you want to do production. So when you want to do production, you have to first of all plan this cost. What are your direct costs? What are your indirect costs? What are your overhead? Plan them, and you plan them using the secondary cost elements, because these activities have nothing to do with FI. And the secondary cost element basically is a cost planning mechanism that is used to do apportionment, that is used to do distribution and assessment of cost within the CEO module. Why the primary cost element is basically the FI, the cost that comes in from the financer, basically the admin cost. So this just explain briefly what CEO is basically all about. So CEO is just a module that gets the support from FI, and CEO uses the information. CEO has his own as a module, does a lot of planning. Why the actual of the plan, let's say for example, CEO plans that it will spend 5,000 for logistics. When we go to the FI document and we post 2,000 for logistics, it will come against that plan, which is 5,000. It will give a variance. So we're going to do this in the system, and it's going to probably make it's going to be clearer. But this is the core relationship between FI and CEO. And luckily in SAP S/4HANA, there is no difference between GL and cost elements, primary cost elements and secondary cost elements. They are created in the same they are created in the chart of accounts. So that integration that divide has been has been removed. So FI and CEO, they relate. The flow of information between FI and CEO is seamless and automatic. It's straightforward. It doesn't have to before you have to manually in ECC, when you create CEO, you have to go and connect FI and CEO together. But here, once you create the the CEO document in your chart of accounts, automatically it links with when you create the CEO document in FI, automatically the links happen. So we're going to see how we're going to see those concepts when we talked about the primary and secondary cost elements. So basically, I'm also going to create two primary and secondary cost elements to help us drive home this point. Okay, so before I do that, I'm going to do some configuration settings for the primary and secondary cost elements. I'm going to try to do that integration before it happens. So I'm going to go to financial accounting. Sorry, to relog in. Once it's about 15 minutes now, let me know so we can go for a break. Jenny, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, Mr. Kelechi.
Okay. So the essence of this class is basically to enlighten you about this concept, probably help you understand them a little bit more deeper. And CEO is a course that you might want to learn alone. Just go for probably when you're very ready, when you're all just do I think CEO is the most. I mean, it's one module that the demand for it is on another level, right? It looks like the most complicated part of SAP, but once you understand these basics once you understand costing and you understand how SAP has designed their system, then you can really understand product costing. That's why it looks like product costing looks like it's quite difficult. But once you understand the basics of CEO, then you can actually dive into the other concepts. So we're going to start with the configuration for the CEO for the cost elements before we move on. So go to financial accounting, global settings, go to ledgers. So we're going to see the integration between CEO and with FI. So we have to also look at that. So we have to do this before we start working on the primary and secondary cost elements. Right, and I think we have created our cost centers. We'll do a posting first and test it, then we move into this. So I think I also need to check the codes, but let's move on. So we have, I think when we come back from the break, so we have defined cost elements for posting and controlling. So we have to define the document types, rather define document types for posting. So the two document types for posting and controlling is the secondary cost. We can see CC. We have the CO cost. We also should have the primary cost element. I don't know if that is here. Let me see. I think there are supposed to be two. I think it's this CO. Somebody must have renamed it. CC and CO. This is supposed to be for the primary cost element. So these are the document types for costing in controlling. The document types for postings in controlling. The next is define document type mapping variants for CO business transactions. All right, so we just execute this. So this is why CO is basically different from, this is why ECC is actually different from FI. You have to do these configurations. So we can use the real CO real time integration. So any of these mapping variants is actually fine. We can use any of them. Most times we use the standard. Sometimes we use the second document type mapping variant. So let's say if we use this should be the default. So we can select this and go to what we can do for both anyway. So you select the standard variant for mapping CO transactions to document types. Then you go to mapping of CO business transaction to document type. The folder is going to open this, right? So you can see that they are all mapped. All the documents in CO, between CO and FI, all the document types are mapped. They are mapped with the document type we checked before now. We had CO. So these are CO. They are mapped. So just confirm that. Then you go back, select the second one, and confirm and make sure. So this mapping is not done because, of course, this is not the standard, right? So this is not the standard. So basically, we might not be able to map this, but that's why I use the default as the one. So if you want to map this, but this, like I said, this is not the default. You can select any CO. You can do the CAPA actual process assessment. For example, you can select this, select the document type, CO, document type CO. For cross-company code, you can select CC, type CC, click on enter and save. So basically, but like I said, we would use the standard one. So once the standard one is set, it's fine, which is this. It's set, it's all filled, so you don't have to do any other thing. But this mapping is very, very important so that automatically FI and CO can relate with each other. So the next is to check and define default values for posting in controlling. All right, so let's check. So basically what this is saying is that if you want a default value, if you want a particular document type to be assigned to your company code while posting, a ledger group to be assigned, then you have to select that ledger group, basically. So if I say, for example, you can see that this is when it's valid from. If I go to ledger group, for example, you're going to see my leading ledger. So I can actually assign it. If I leave it blank, that means all ledgers will be available for use, during this phase, right? But if I change it, then it's fine. But let me see, I would have to assign a leading ledger so that when we are doing a posting, the system will just use that ledger to do reporting. So IBTC is our accompanying code. For now, they're all free. The mapping variant is a standard variant. We can assign a ledger group to our, okay, so IBTC is not here. That's what I'm saying. IBTC.
You need to add it. It's not there. You need to add it.
Yeah, so I'll just basically just copy this and add it. And put the ledger group so that by default, all postings go to this ledger group and you can save. So these are all under CEO configurations, basically. Right. So the next thing we can do is to define ledger for CEO versions. Let me see. I think we have define ledger for CEO versions. So here we have actually done that. So we have done that in the. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove this because it's already done. This is default values. I think I'll remove this here. Since I will define it on the other side. And I will define it here. Define ledger for CEO version. So IBTC is already defined here. So I don't need to replicate that. So the leading ledger, and we're going to be using both plan and actual versions for this transaction code. So basically, this is a very, very important step. And we have been able to, number one, then of course you have account determination. This is for intercompany clearing. So we have been able to set up our profit centers, created some profit centers, set up our cost centers, created some cost centers. We have actually worked on the integration between CEO and FI. The transaction code for this, you can always check if you follow the steps. So the first transaction code is, let me see if this, okay, this would be a table. So we might not, let's see. Okay, this is a table SM30. So this is not it.
SM30, yes.
Yes, it's a table mapping the variance. Sorry, let me check the T code. This is also a table. This is also a table. SM34. Define default values. This is also a table. SM30. So you can pick these T codes from this define ledger for CEO version. This is also SM30. So you can, these are fixed to tables, so you can run this T codes basically. Okay, so we have actually done this. So the beauty of CEO, guys, I think if you take your time to really study CEO, you're going to understand that it's basically nothing about planning. So I have a planned cost, and I have an actual cost, and I have a variance. So what I use for planning is in cost center accounting, we use the primary cost elements. But when we start going into direct and indirect cost and overhead, then we'll start using elements like the secondary cost elements. So we're going to have basically a business scenario. Basically, when we come back, the company wants to keep record of management cost, and let's say the management wants to know the functionality of cost accounting in SAP, right? So it's left on us to explain to them what is the functionality of cost and how can we plan this cost, the different costs. So the next topic we're going to be looking at is plan and actual cost for primary cost elements, right? So we are going to be going through that, just basically seeing how to define, how to create cost, how to plan for cost, how to post the actual cost, and how to do reporting for this cost. Very, very simple. In fact, so what we are going to do, I think I'm beginning to fall in love with CO, because it's not like FI that has a fixed idea. If you're somebody who really loves thinking and who loves trying to figure out things, then you would really enjoy CO. But you have to do a lot of studies. You have to do a lot of learning. So we are going to planning for logistics, and we're going to be planning cost for sales. Then let's say, for example, the plan cost for this is um, in dollars, we can say 12,000. Plan for cost for this, we can say it 9,000. We can say okay, 9,000. This is for a year, for a fiscal year. Then we can also say during the year we had an actual cost. So we'll know how we can plan and how we can get this actual cost. The actual cost for this during the year was 7.5, or let's say $8,000. And the actual cost for this was 6,500. Let's say $6,000. Then of course the variance. So we'll see how we'll see how we can plan for this. So the scenario basically we're going to use is that the accounting manager, so I can just say the accounting manager. So when we come back, we'll look at this more deeper. Wants to know, thinking about what he wants to know, how he can do planning for fixed cost. These fixed costs for we can call this sales. Okay, so that's for sales and logistics expenses. Okay, so that's the scenario. Like the accounting manager wants to know how. So the year is starting, and he wants to know how can we plan for fixed cost. So when you use, when we are talking about fixed cost in accounting, and we're talking about the primary cost elements, we're talking about the GLs, because fixed costs are fixed and they can be determined, right? Once you post to the GL, they are fixed and they can be determined. It's variable cost that we'll now begin to look at the 3 different costs, and we can use. Then we'll start bringing in the issue of cost element and how we can actually do that activity. Yeah, but probably in the future, if you want to learn, go deeper into costing and product costing and COPA. Those are different. I mean, you can learn that as a full course and stand very well on your own. But this is what SAP is all about, right? There's no time you get to an SAP you feel you have learned, or you feel you are okay, or you feel you have known. Because the more you aspire to get better opportunities, the more, because better opportunities mean better challenges, it means bigger responsibilities. So you have to really step up. But so those who do not see it as a career, they just see it as a way of having a livelihood, once they are able to get a job, they just get the support and they just keep going every day. They might not know what is happening. As long as people are supporting them, it's fine. But there are people like me, who see myself in this career in the next probably 50 years or thereabout, God keeping us alive. We have to do everything possible to really understand every single nitty-gritty of what we're doing, and basically to defend, or to be able to stand before um, you know management and discuss these things, right? So that's my own goal. My own goal is not, when I started SAP, it wasn't about getting a job, because I spent 1 year learning SAP without even applying for any job. It was, for me, it was a major career break for me. It wasn't really about just getting a job and going. It was, I wanted to switch careers fully, right? So I invested time, I invested resources into what I'm doing now, right? So when I see people who just want to come in and just, well, I mean, it works for some. I mean, you can find your way, you can muzzle your way into it and find your way, but you will still have to learn. You will still go through what I went through. You might spend 1 year on the job learning, but if it's learning, you will still pay the price. There's no, if you, there are, like we'll say, there are many ways to get to any destination you want to get to. But the most important thing is that whichever way you take, there's a price to pay. So at the end of the day, we all would have to, but the advice here is that learning never really ends, right? It's a lifelong learning. Maybe in years to come, SAP will bring more versions, we bring more editions. We'll just keep learning. So SAP is a lifelong thing. Even when you get a job, you probably feel you want to improve. So when you get a job, you don't you don't really, your job does not define how much you know SAP. You have to, on your own, keep going, keep learning, keep pay for these things and get the knowledge and move on. The ones you can get, you can go online, get materials, get videos, support yourself too as much as you can. But the learning never really ends. That's just a charge. So when we come back from this break, we're going to look at costing, know how, just very simple, just look at it. How will we come to this point where we have to plan the cost and we have to do the actual cost and we have to see the variance? What does this mean really? It's not just about running T codes and putting the figures and just getting the answers. No, it's really about understanding why this is happening and what you're doing, right? And for me, that is what is really most important. I would have just ran T code and say, hey, to create this thing, yeah, wow, we create. But really, at the end of the day, when you stand before people, you cannot really give your own ideas about this. But the idea of this is to explain them as much as possible. Then, I mean, when they tell you about costing, about CO, about the different cost elements, about when secondary cost element comes in, and the different kinds of cost, when you use your primary cost element for fixed cost. So I would just say this is mostly for fixed cost. The other cost is the secondary elements. We will just, I think the focus of this class will be on the primary cost element. Secondary cost element will be taken out into product costing and Coupa, and that will be for another session. So thank you guys. We'll go for a 15 minutes break. So just add 15 minutes to your time. For me, it's going to be by 8:10. Is it? Yeah, 8:10. We should be back and continue this session. Are you guys there?
Yeah. Good. Thank you.
Yeah. All right.